We say it's good to have you here tonight. We're going to get started. We have a shorter meeting because of a quarterly church business meeting tonight. So, Brother Tim, if you would remind those guys, we're going to ring that bell about 7:45. Sir? No. 6. So remember that timing if you can. We got different numbers going on. A couple of things just kind of remind you of, if you will. The quarterly meeting is this Saturday, the Central Association of Arkansas Free Will Baptist in Jacksonville at Crossroads Church. Let me encourage you if you can and like to go. We want you to go to visit our sister churches, especially the one in Jacksonville. Brother Ron Scott, the pastor there. A van will leave here about 8:30 in the morning if you'd like to ride up there with us, but the meeting starts at 9. Brother David Taylor, who is the Executive Secretary of Arkansas Free Will Baptist, is going to be there to speak and talk to us about the state work and all the things that are coming up. New camp director, new Arkansas Student Ministries director. So if you will, remember that's coming up this Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, Jacksonville, 8:30. Van leaves, if you would. That afternoon, Brother Matthew asked me to remind you and talk about this. All of our young people are invited to go ice skating, and so if you can, come be a part of that. They'll meet here at 1 o'clock in the church and then go over to enjoy that time together. If you've never been ice skating, it's fun. Go try it. You say, no, I don't want to even attempt to try that. You would have fun. They got little things you can push around if you don't think you can do it. It's like a little penguin. You can get behind the little penguin. Yeah, kind of, and you can push it around, if you want to do that. They got all kind of ways to help you, So it's fun. I mean, you'll enjoy it, Arkansas Skatorium is what it's called. It is on John Barrow Road, I think. Somebody help me if I'm wrong. John Barrow, Markham. Oh, right there, Canis, John Barrow. Skatorium, I think is what it's called. So if you want to meet there, please do that as well. Also, let me just kind of encourage you, remember you, Sunday morning after the morning service is our church fellowship lunch. We want everybody to stay and be a part of that. There's a sign-up list out in the foyer. I think it's tacos and all the fixings that goes along with those. So if you need to look at that list, please do. You can sign up and be a part of that. Once again, if you bring it, we'll eat it. Just put it out there. I promise you somebody will get a hold to it, whether it's dessert or whatever it may be. So come, be a part of that, if you will, Sunday morning after church. And then a lot of stuff is happening that afternoon with Esther drama rehearsal, choir rehearsal. All those things will follow up after that. So just kind of remember that. One thing kind of looking forward just a little bit, the Arkansas State meeting of Free Will Baptist is on a Monday and Tuesday up at Camp Beaver Fork in May. It's May the 20th and the 21st. It's a Monday, Tuesday. If you're off work and you can, there's a service on Monday night and then all the business on Tuesday as well. And Tuesday afternoon, another service. So if you can, a lot of our missionaries come to that. You get to hear about all the state work. So if you can, May the 20th, 21st, that's coming up as well. So keep that on your calendar and remember it. Any other announcements about things happening? Am I missing anything? No. All right. Anybody know your memory verse? I know it was long. Somebody said no. Anybody know what it was from? Psalm 61, verse 2. It says what? Somebody tell me. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is what? Higher than I. Psalm 61, 2. And we know that when we're weak, God is strong. He's that rock that's higher than I. I don't know about you, but I've been in those situations before where I'm overwhelmed. And that's okay, because we know that we have the Lord there, and He is with us. And so remember that we can always run to Him. All right. A couple of things on our missionaries before I jump off into our prayer list, and we got some things to update you along the way with our prayer list, if you will. Let me encourage you, continue to pray for works all across the world. Argentina, as you know, that's a new connection we have and partnership we have in Argentina. They had a 4-day evangelistic campaign in one of our churches there leading up to Easter. People were baptized, accepted Christ down in Argentina, so thankful for that. Let me encourage you, pray for the country of Bangladesh, our partners that are working there. One of their churches, the government got mad and just went and padlocked the church shut. Won't let them have services there. And so let me encourage you, pray for the work that's going on there. There's a quick resolution. One of them said that we had some folks that were unhappy because the church was not following the Hindu practices, and so they got upset and they went and had the church door locked. So pray for them, if you will, our partners there. Bulgaria, continue to pray for the Trifnos. They were here at our church. Easter in Bulgaria is May the 5th. Pray for them as they lead up to that service. They're having a big outreach event called Mark Drama, which is a drama around the Gospel of Mark. So pray for them that people will come, see that non-Christians that will come and be encouraged to come to the church there. So remember, if you will, pray for them. India, let me encourage you to continue to pray for the work there. India has probably run into the same thing that many of the Eastern Asian countries have run into. One of them, the church there in, I think it's the northern part of India, they ran into the same thing. People got upset. They were not following after the Hindu festivities, and so now they are just saying, we're not going to padlock it. They just want to tear the church down. So that's happening all across that particular area, so continue to pray for them. Brother Denver, a little bit of help here. You may give me some information here. In Ivory Coast, just for a little bit, I know that they've had, just got through with their National Women's Retreat. They had over 780 ladies that attended it. You didn't hear about that at all, I know. They also had a youth evangelistic kind of national youth program that went on. Several young people come to know Christ during it. But from what I understand, they were one of the, I don't know if it's a church there, but they're trying to raise money for a tent. Have you heard that? Yeah, they're trying to get the funds together to build a church, but until that, they want to be able to get a tent. And one of the churches there in Ivory Coast. And I didn't know if you might know what church that it was. So pray for the work in Ivory Coast. A lot's going on there. We see God blessing it in a lot of ways. But if you will, continue to pray for that work, if you would. Pakistan, remember I told you several months ago about the ministry there that is bringing people off the streets that are addicted to drugs. This ministry has been working with them, and then after that, they opened up a facility, a vocational facility to teach these men a trade so they would not go back into that lifestyle again. They've also now have plans to open up the same type of vocational learning center for teenage boys so that they don't get in that cycle of poverty and drugs. So I want to encourage you, pray for the work that's going on there. As you know, many of those in Pakistan are not believers. This ministry gets to bring them in, help them with this addiction, help them with the poverty cycle, and teach them the gospel of Jesus Christ. So it's amazing what our missionaries are doing. Continue to pray for them as they continue their work there in all these countries that we've mentioned here tonight. Our prayer list, a couple of things I want you to kind of add, update, and I'll just kind of show a few of them here on the screen. I do encourage you to keep Sister Ruby in your prayers. Sister Cindy. Sister Maureen, any updates on her that you heard today? Good. Right. Better. Okay. Keep Sister Cindy in your prayers, just if you would. I know she appreciates it. Sister Sandra as well. continue to pray for her. Brother Jerry and Sister Frida, we always ask you to remember them. Brother Kevin as well. I'll ask you to pray for Sister Donna Romine. She fell out of a chair yesterday. It was outside. She thought it was sitting on her patio. Half of it was and half of it wasn't. And she fell over when she sat down, landed on the concrete, hit her head, shoulder, hip. And she said basically either right now she has to either stand or lay. She can't sit at all. And so if you guys would pray for her, having a difficult time right now physically. Her niece is Linda Jo Hull. Lives up in the Midwestern United States. She is in need of a liver transplant. She's had some other health complications as well. Went through surgery yesterday for some blood flow problems. If you will, pray for her. She asked us, called and said, would you pray for her tonight? So please do that if you will. Brother Chris Whitaker, continue to pray for Brother Chris. Those that are first responders and are connected with our church, from those working in the hospital, doctors, firefighters, please remember to pray for them. Brother Roy, Sister Karen, continue to pray for Brother Roy. Just patience with Sister Karen, that she'll have patience with him. A lot of stuff going on there with his dementia and health issues. So pray for Brother Roy, Sister Karen. Sister Brenda, pray for her. They're thinking about starting some radiation treatments with her. So if you guys would pray for Brother Jerry as they make those decisions. A lot going on with her cancer treatment. Sister Vanisa's family, the Brown family, as well as Brother Dennis's family, continue to pray for them. Ashley Mustafa in the Middle East. Brother Tim, continue to pray for him physically, spiritually. Brother Dale as well. I do encourage you to pray for these guys as they continue. The Lord speak to them and give them strength as well. Brother Matthew Whitworth, this is Sister Twinkie Daly's nephew who's dealing with a brain tumor. Sister Joyce Wells passed away today. So I want to encourage you to pray for her family. I'm sorry, I didn't see it until I found out. So if you will, pray for her. Talk to her daughter just for a moment. They're in the process of making arrangements. She had a massive stroke last Monday. And so she passed away today, and as we find out more information, we'll let you know. Also, Brother Tommy Henderson passed away last night, so I want to encourage you to pray for him, his family, if you will. Keith, his son, Jeremy, his son, live here. Of course, his son is married to Donna Romine's daughter, and so if you guys would, Brother Tommy was an interim pastor here for about 6 months in transition between some other pastors, and so, of course, Brother Archie his dad was a deacon here at our church for a long time. So if you guys would remember that family in your prayers. I do want to ask you to pray for, I mentioned to you Sunday night, Donnie Tramble. Donnie married, his wife was in the hospital. The baby was born at 24 weeks. So I want to encourage yesterday, I was able to go up and see them, pray for them before the birth of the child. The baby, a little girl, she weighs 2 pounds, 5 ounces. So let me encourage you to pray for Donnie. Mom, his name is Shirley. Baby's name as well. And I can tell you the name, if you can write it down, you're good. Mashonda Kaylee is her name. So right now they're in Baptist over in Little Rock. So pray for this child to gain strength every day. Pray for that family, if you will. Please. I got a note as well from Sister Sandra. Sister Pat Hargrave is not feeling very well, pretty sick right now. So if you would jot down Pat Hargrave's name on your prayer list, I know she would appreciate it. She's usually watching us as we speak, but Pat Hargrave, if you would. All right. A lot of spiritual needs on our prayer list. Please pray for these that are mentioned there. Many are family and friends, children, grandchildren that are on that list. So please continue to pray for those that we've mentioned here. I know there's others that we could write on that list, but just some that have been mentioned there that have been given to me. Remember that. Pray for the ministries of our church. Brother Barrios, our Hispanic ministry, youth ministry, young adult ministries. We always ask you to pray for them, for Florence Crittenden Home, those that are serving there in that ministry. So remember to pray for these guys if you would. Who else there? Jeannie Schott is at home. So that's a good thing. She's still going through, I think, outpatient rehab, but continue to pray for her. Chuck Ray is out of ICU, but still in the hospital. So you can continue to pray for him if you would. Who else? Yes. Okay. Wow. Okay. 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 Lisa Finch. Okay. All right. Who else there? I don't want to overlook anyone or cruise past anybody. I feel like I'm missing something. All right. All right, a lot of needs there, especially, let me ask you, remember these families that have lost loved ones? We've had several over this last several weeks that have gone through that. And so I encourage you to continue to pray for them. Brother Don was here Sunday, first time since Sister Rowena passed away. Those are hard steps to take, and so I encourage you to pray for them. Others that have been through that recently, don't forget, just to keep them in your prayers. A lot of physical needs. I encourage you, continue to pray for the lost. I've challenged you over the last several times we've talked. I hope you have somebody on your prayer list that's not a Christian that you pray for every day. There's a list of names here. Some of them know the Lord. Some of them have drifted away from Him. But I hope you pray for somebody that's lost. I hope you have somebody on your prayer list every day that's not a believer that you pray for. I think that's one of the greatest missions we have as a church. Pray for those that are lost. In our community, yes, but I think specifically names that we know of. And so when you look at some of those names, please stop and pray for those that are lost, that need to come to know Christ, that He would use us to reach them with the gospel. And that's our mission as a church, to bring people to Christ. And so I encourage you, pray for our missionaries, those that are listed there, and the ones we mentioned tonight. They're doing the same thing. And they want us praying for them. I got a note from Brother Anthony Edgman. He wants to come by and talk to us as well before he goes back to Spain. We're going to try to fit him in the schedule. They know they need our prayers, our support. So I encourage you, stop for a moment, pray. Pick a name out. You say, Brother Mark, I don't know of anybody. Pick a name. There's some names listed there. Pray for them, okay? It's not that hard to do. So stop and do that if you would. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer just for a moment. Yes, go. Okay. Yeah, pray for these young people. They're going to be here. Many of them are Brother Pierre's class, Sister Sandra's Sunday school classes as well, and then, of course, here in worship with us. Pray for those. Pray it's a peaceful time getting here, and that they come and they're open to hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, please pray for that if you would. All right, who else? Anybody? Brother Jim Baker. Brother Jim, would you lead us in prayer tonight? The last time we were together, I introduced to you a subject that I admitted to you up front. I'm not good at. It's immense. It is hard to understand it all. It is hard to grasp, but I think it's something that we need to approach and something we need to look at. And so I encourage your comments and your thoughts. The last several verses of Psalm 72, if you know, David reached out in his writing at the conclusion of that psalm and talked about the glory of God, that the whole earth be filled with His glory. And the question was, what does that mean? When you say the earth be filled with the glory of God, what does that mean? And to be real honest with you, I had no idea when we were putting all this stuff together that the eclipse was going to happen on Monday. I didn't know that. So don't think somehow or another I planned that. I didn't. I'm not that good, I promise you. And so when you stop and think about that just for a minute, what comes to mind? Well, I read you some verses where some of the prophets tried to describe God, His glory. Isaiah chapter 6, you probably remember me reading that, where Isaiah saw God on His throne. Ezekiel chapter 8 as well. And then we even read in the book of Revelation chapter 7, Revelation chapter 4, as the writers there tried to describe the glory of God somehow. And man's words, there again, are empty at times and the best that we can use in trying to describe that. When I said the glory of God, just a simple term means to honor. Glory means honor or excellent reputation. When you read Isaiah chapter 43, verse 7, God proclaims there that He made man for His glory, for His honor. I think that verse goes a long way in describing how we should live our life. When it says there, from everyone that has called my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. So we understand there again, man even was created for the glory of God. That's why we exist. That's why we live and breathe. But then we looked in Romans chapter 3, verse 23, where it says, well, all have sinned and done what? Come short of the glory of God. So what does that mean? Tell me what you think that means at that verse. Somebody just give me a random, or tell me what you think that means. What does it mean that we've fallen short of the glory of God? Human nature, yes. Okay. We sinned. His approval, okay. Probably in that text, it probably leans more toward the approval of God. We've fallen short of the approval, the glory, the approval of God in our lives. And why have we done that? Because we have sinned. Let's be honest for a minute. Man usually seeks the approval of what? Men. Or the world. Or even themselves at times. We seek the praise of men. We seek the praise of this world. Very few times do we find ourselves seeking the approval of God. And because of that, we sin. We fall short of the glory of God as well. So understand when we talk about falling short of the glory of God, His honor, His reputation, God is the standard, right? Sinless perfection. Isaiah in Isaiah chapter 6, when he saw God, what did he cry out? Holy, holy, holy is the Lord what? God Almighty. Everything about God is holy. His love, His mercy, His forgiveness, His character, His demands, His decrees. Everything God is holy. And that's the standard. And we fall short of that, right? Because we're human. We're sinners. And so we fall short of that. Now, here's the good thing, and stay with me for a minute. I'm thankful for what Christ has done. And it's because of that, even though we fall short of that approval, that standard of God's righteousness, which is absolute righteousness, because of Christ, we can still come before God. If we're believers in Jesus Christ, we can still do that. Why? Because Christ was absolute righteous. Just like the Father, holy, 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 without sin. When I put my faith and trust in Jesus Christ, what happens? The absolute righteousness of Jesus Christ is put on my account. My sin is put on Jesus' account. And because of that, I can come boldly to the throne of God, right? I can approach that. And God sees me, because of my faith in Jesus Christ and His work, God sees me in that absolute righteousness. But if I don't know Christ, He still sees me as that sinner that is in need of that absolute righteousness. So there again, we're thinking about that glory. When we talk about that, what does that mean? Glory also means the bright light that surrounds God's presence. If you remember in Revelation, and even Ezekiel and Isaiah both they looked and His face was as the sun. You can't look upon the sun. Remember the eclipse? You can't look upon that. There's a brightness about it. There's a brilliance about it. And John trying to describe it as best he can, and so is Isaiah. But there's something that's there that is a brilliance and a brightness, a purity that's there that we can't even really find words to describe when we say the glory of God. I wish He had words. I wish I had better words to try to describe that as well. But I told you last time we were together that what? God's glory is something that belongs only to Him alone. Nobody else has that glory or deserves that glory or has obtained that glory. God is the only one. We talked about that just a little bit together. This past week, you found out that what? Creation is a majestic witness to the glory of God. I told you the other night before we left, I think it was night, maybe it had been that morning, that one of the things that this eclipse did for me was it told us how amazing our God is. I don't know about you, but it did mean to think all of those things were in perfect timing, in perfect place the whole time. Tells me how awesome our God is. Creation cries out. In Psalm chapter 19, verse 1, the heavens declare what? The glory of God, and the firmament showed His handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth the knowledge. So day and night, creation does what? It cries out to the glory of God. Go. Isn't that amazing? And we saw that this past week, I'll be honest with you. And when you think about gravity and you think about all the ways things are put into place, and what we see basically every day with our eye is amazing. But then when you go beyond what our eyes can see into space and the telescopes they send out, it just gets more amazing at this God. And creation cries out how glorious our God is. In Acts chapter 14, the Apostle Paul is preaching. I think he's at Lystra. In verse 16 and 17, here's what he says. Who in times past suffered all things to walk in their own ways. Nevertheless, he left not himself without witness. Speaking about Christ. In that He did good and gave us what? Rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, filling our hearts with food and gladness. Think about it. The mere fact that you eat food every day cries out to the glory of God. When we sit down at a table and say, thank you, Lord, for this food, basically what you're declaring is the gloriness of God, the glory of God. Think about it. You put a seed in the dirt. It rains. It sprouts. A plant, and food comes off of that, and guess what? We get to eat it. How does that happen? I'm telling you how it happens. God. Creation, the very food that you eat, is a declaration of the glory of God. Do you ever think about that? Well, Brother Mark, it's just food. No, it's amazing how that food comes into being. How does that happen? Who ordained that? Who put that into place? And each seed of its own kind. Think about that. To me, that if you've ever been on a farm, if you've ever seen how those plants work, and most of the time here in the city, we buy a plant, it's already seeded, and it's already growing. And we were other day, I think at Lowe's or somewhere, and guess what? It already had tomatoes on the plants. You didn't even have to You could buy it and stick it in your house, and you had tomatoes already. And I kept thinking, how do you get joy out of that? But ever been on a farm and watch us, put it in the ground and watch that plant come up, and then see the fruit come out of it? To me, there again, that's a declaration of God's glory, of how He's done that. Revelation chapter 4, verse 11, there again, John's trying the best that he can and here's what he says. And behold, I heard the voice of many angels around the throne, the beast and the elders, and the numbers of them was 10,000 times 10,000 times 10,000. Verse 11 says, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for Thou hast created all things, and for Thy pleasure they are and were created. So not only did He create them all, but guess what? They exist by His power. So anything you see, touch, feel, smell, guess what? It declares the glory of God. Everything is held in order. Everything is put in place. All that we see is all declaring what? The glory of God. Sometimes when I don't know if you ever stop and just think about all the beauty that's there, but all the way things are put exactly in place at the exact time. This eclipse reminded me of that as well. You're just amazed by that. How rain works, how lightning and rivers and streams and snow. And when you stop back and think about it, it's an amazing thing. But what do? They declare the glory of God. Let me take you to one more step. Jesus is the image of that invisible God. We discussed a little bit in our morning class, has any person ever seen God? What do you think? Yes? John chapter 14, verse 9, Jesus said unto him, I have been so long time with you, and yet thou hast not known me. Philip said, he said unto Philip, He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how do you say to them, Show us the Father? So we know Jesus was the what? He is the visible image of the invisible God. He was God in the flesh, right? So when you think about God and all of His glory, you think about Jesus Christ, His life, His ministry that He here had on this earth. And what did it do? It declared what? The glory of God. I often tell you, read big. And why do I want you to read big? It's because sometimes we get so caught up in just a verse or two that we don't see the majestic ministry and the power and the authority of Jesus Christ. I hope sometime you go back and see that and understand that Christ was that visible representation of God in all of His glory. Was He in human form? Yes. But He was God in the flesh. Colossians chapter 1, verse 15, Paul writes this, speaking of Jesus Christ, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature. So there again, Jesus is that visible representation of that glory of God, and we know that, we see that, how He worked, how He lived. We know in Scripture, there's several verses, and I could have listed page after page after page of verses that talk about the glory of God. When you go in Psalm chapter 24, verse 10, it says, Who is the King of glory? The Lord of hosts, He is the King of glory. Once again, I'm trying to get you a picture of the glory of God and what that represents and how that understands. I do encourage you, if you've not read Psalm 104, flip over there with me just for a minute. Go to that text. We said creation cries out to the glory of God. Psalm 104 says this, Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God, for Thou art very great, Thou art clothed with honor and majesty. Who coverest Thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain, who layeth the beams of the chambers and waters, who maketh the cloud his chariots, who walketh upon the wings of the wind, who maketh the angels spirits, his ministers of flaming fire, who laid the foundations of the world so they should never be moved. Thou covered it as deep with a garment, and waters stood above the mountains. At the rebuke they fled, at the voice of thy thunder they hastened away. This is the God we're talking about. Can you get a picture of Him just for a moment? They go up by the mountains, they go down by the valleys to a place where Thou hast founded for them. Thou hast set a bound by they may not pass over, that they might turn again to cover the earth. This is the God who put everything in place. This majestic God, this God, the glorious God. And I'm giving you these scriptures because, to be honest with you, I can't get the words to put it clearly. In the New Testament, and some of these verses you know very well. In Luke chapter 2, verse 9, what happens there? It's the birth of Christ. What do the angels come down to the shepherds, and what do they say? Somebody tell me. Glory to God in the highest. What happened to the shepherds at that point in time? Anybody know? They were fearful. And the angel of the Lord was upon them. The glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. You got to understand, shepherds had probably seen everything you could imagine in the night skies. They'd seen the stars. They'd seen all kinds of things that had happened. But something was different when the glory of God showed up. Now, what was that? I don't know. I know there were angels there. The angel said unto them, fear not. But what did the glory of God look like that it made these shepherds who had experienced so much in their life, now they're afraid? I don't know. Go back to Matthew chapter 17. If I don't do anything else, I want you to get a picture from Scripture about the glory of God. Christ is being transfigured before Peter, James, and John. They're up on the Mount of Transfiguration. It says, after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and brings them to the high mountain apart, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was as white as light. The glory of God. What did it look like? Well, his face looks like what? The sun. And his garments that he had on were pure, spotless, white. The glory of God. They don't know what to do. They're overwhelmed. The glory of God. Let me take you to one other spot. And you know, Revelation has a lot to say about this. And you could read a lot of the verses. But Revelation chapter 21, verse 23. It says this, John speaking about the city, New Jerusalem. And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb were the temple of. And the city had no need of the sun. No need of the sun. Well, we know what happens when the sun's not around. What happens? It's dark. Right? Neither of the moon to shine for it, for the glory of God did lighten it. And the Lamb is the light thereof. I read a description the other day of this city called New Jerusalem. Now, I'm not going to, don't hold me to this, okay? So don't get too, I did not check the measurements and the distances and calculate them all myself, but just read this description. From the best they can tell, they're describing it to us who live in the United States, just the city, New Jerusalem, would expand basically from Atlanta, Georgia to Los Angeles, California. Wide, from Austin, Texas to up above Chicago, that way, east and west. Just the city sits there. But you understand the city is 4 square, so it is also as tall as it is wide. Think of that vastness, and there's no need for the sun or the moon because the glory of God enlightens that city. Can you get a grasp of the glory of God just for a minute? Isn't that amazing? To think about that His glory fills that city. No need for the sun or the moon. There again, the glory of God is there. Now, here's the question. Let's get down to this. So how will we see God in heaven? What do you think? Brother Phil's clearing his throat. Come on, let me hear it, Brother Phil. How come nobody wants to answer that question? How will we see God in heaven? What do you think? Okay. Okay. Psalm 145:3 says this, "Great is the Lord and greatly to be praised, and His greatness is unsearchable." Will we ever know the greatness of God? Even there. Adam and Eve, you're talking about? Yes. Right. Will we ever be able to experience and understand God? Go. Right. Right. Sure. Yeah, we know we have we know we've seen the Son in human form for sure. Okay. Okay. Right. Right. Graven image. Right. It's hard to describe those things. Yeah. Jesus in John 6, it says, "It written in the prophets, they shall be all taught of God. Every man, therefore, that hath heard, hath learned of the Father, and cometh unto me. Not that any man hath seen the Father, save he which is of God. He hath seen the Father." So Christ is saying he's seen the Father. And if people that are of God, of Christ, will they be able to see the Father? I read a text, and there again, I'm giving you some verses, and I want you to think upon these things in 1 Timothy. When Paul tries to describe God there in verse 17 of 1 Timothy, he says, "Now unto the King eternal, immortal, invisible, the only wise God, be glory and honor forever and ever." So there again, will we see Him? Will we know Him? 1 John chapter 4, verse 12. And they'll ring that bell and come in here in just a minute. 1 John chapter 4, verse 12. Let me read that to you. It says, "No man hath seen God at any time." That's what John writes. But if we love one another, God dwelleth in us, and His love is perfect toward us. So will we see Him? Let me give you one last verse to consider. Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. This is the teaching of Christ. He's on there again. We call it giving the speech there, the Beatitudes, and we know He's there teaching. And so I'll read you this verse. Matthew chapter 5, verse 8 says this: Blessed are the pure in heart, for what? They shall see God. Oh, I got questions. Good. Good. Holy, holy, holy. They're covered. Can they see Him? Who gets to see Him? Yeah. You know, there again, Matthew chapter 5, verse 8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Is that just Jesus? Once we are believers in Christ, pure in heart, do we get to see Him? Okay. We'll see Him what? We receive a new body. Okay. Yeah. Don't say that too loud. Yes. Right. Right. Yeah. Go ahead. Right. True. You wish you could talk to Lazarus. Lazarus, what did you see? I want to know. Yes, sir. Was that Jesus walking in the garden? Was it God? The Father? And will all that be restored when we get to heaven? We sing that, don't we? Sure. All right, we got to stop. I'll let you think about those things. Come back next week with more questions. I've got some.